This is one of my most used and productive nymphs during the early spring. To tie it, we'll start off with some olive thread. Snap our excess free, inserting some lead-free wire into our bead to help secure it in place. Secure tightly. And helicopter your excess free, at which point we'll wrap our thread backwards until we reach the bend of the hook. And grab a bit of hare's ear dubbing, creating a dubbing noodle and wrapping it just in front of the bend of our hook. At which point, we'll grab a grouse feather, strip a few fibers free, and secure it tightly to the back of our fly in order to make up our tail. Continue securing it to your hook shank. And snip your excess free. Cover up your tag ends. And grab some olive D-rib. We'll secure this to the side of our hook shank, once again wrapping back towards our tail. With this complete, we'll set it aside, creating another dubbing noodle, once again out of some olive hare's ear. We'll wrap our dubbing noodle forward in closed touching spirals, building up a transition and leaving a bit of room at the head of our fly. And brush it out to give it that nice, buggy look. At which point, we'll grab our D-rib and begin to wrap it forward in nearly closed touching spirals. However, we'll try to trap as much of the hare's ear outside of it to give it that nice, buggy look. Doing so until we reach our thread. Secure tightly in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind it. Before snipping your excess free. Cover up your tag ends and lay down a thread base for our next step. Here, we'll grab some lateral scale and secure a piece to the top side of our fly, wrapping it backwards towards our dubbing. We'll then grab some lively legs. Here I'm using olive. However, we'll snip the back two off, securing it to the top side of our fly, just behind the bead, using a thread to carefully position it in place so that your legs face forward. And of course snip your excess free. At which point, we'll create another dubbing noodle and begin wrapping it forward to build up a body and being careful not to trap any of our legs. At which point, we'll brush it out in a downward motion to simulate legs and give it that nice, buggy look. Before folding over our flash, securing it at the head of the fly, taking securing wraps both in front as well as behind. Before snipping your excess free with finish to hold it all together. And paint over the top of it with some UV resin to add some shine and durability to our pattern. And this is one of my favorite and top producing mayfly nymphs to use in late April and early May. Sometimes I'll add the legs, but other times, if I'm in a rush to fill up blocks for guide season, I'll just tie it without them, and it works just as well. And if you have mayflies in your water, I'd highly suggest giving it a try. And if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This is a killer fly pattern that you won't want to be without. To tie it, we'll start off with some black thread and grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using chartreuse. Insert the wire into your bead, securing it tightly in place and wrapping back towards the bend of your hook. With this complete, we'll reverse our thread's direction and start to build up a transition as we work towards the head of the fly. Doing so by wrapping forward, reversing your thread's direction back almost to the starting point before reversing your direction once again back up towards the head. Repeating this process until you're happy with the results. Once happy, we'll whip finish. Set our thread aside and grab your brassy wire and begin to wrap this forward in closed touching spirals. If you have a rotary vise, this makes this process much easier. However, it's not necessary. Continue to wrap your wire forward, working up towards the bead and saving a bit of room for our following steps. Once complete, we'll secure our wire in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire, before helicoptering the excess free. Next, we'll grab some natural colored hairs here. Here I'm using a new blend of Euro dubbing that you can find in the comments below. Strip a few fibers free and create a dubbing noodle. We'll begin to create a small buildup of dubbing just on top of our thread wraps, leaving some room at the head of the fly for a few additional steps. With this complete, we'll brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. Next, we'll grab a CDC feather. Here I'm using a light dun color. Measure it to be about as long as your wire before securing it tightly in place on the underside of our fly. Secure it tightly by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the material to pinch it in place before snipping the excess free. Cover up your tag ends and grab some saddle hackle. Here I'm using grizzly. We'll secure a few tips of our grizzly hackle to either side of our fly pattern. However, I should mention that this pattern is originally tied with mallard flanks, which will help sink it a little faster. However, this fly sinks plenty fast, and I prefer the look like this. Snip your excess free, cover up your tag ends, and grab some more dubbing. This time, we're using black, mixed in with a bit of ice dubbing. Blend them together, create a dubbing noodle, and begin wrapping this just in front of our other materials until you reach your bead. Pull everything backwards, adding a few thread wraps in front, before brushing it out to give it a nice, buggy look. Add some UV resin, whip finish to hold it all together. Snip your thread free and secure it in place with a UV light. And this is the Sweet Meat Caddis, a pattern that makes an exceptionally good diving or emerging caddis. And while it has a lot going on, it still sinks incredibly quickly, and I would highly suggest giving it a try. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. We're going to be tying up one of my favorite attractor variants of this extremely successful competition fly. We'll start off with some black thread, inserting some lead-free wire into our bead, secure it in place tightly, and helicopter your excess free. At which point, we'll continue wrapping backwards towards the bend of our hook and grab some black feathers. We'll secure a small clump to the back of our fly, making up the tail, wrapping backwards towards the bend of our hook, before reversing our direction, securing the tag ends up towards the bead. This will help build up an even transition of her body. Snip the excess free and grab some tinsel. Here I'm using medium in the color purple. Snip a small piece free, securing it to the head of the fly, before wrapping backwards until we reach our tail. And if you'd like to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. And if you want to help support the channel, you can pick up some fly boxes if you don't tie, or submit a custom order form, and I'll tie up whatever flies you're looking for. We'll continue building up a transition towards the head of the fly by wrapping forward, reversing our direction almost back to the starting point, and wrapping your thread back up to the head, continuing to do so until we're happy with our transition. You can build this up into a strong carrot shape. However, I think these flies work particularly well when left slender. We'll finish up by wrapping up towards the head of the fly, grabbing our tinsel and wrapping it forward in close touching spirals, and continue to do so until you reach your thread. At which point, we'll secure it in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free. Cover up your tag ends and build up a slight base of our black thread. While I like to keep mine black, this is typically used to build up a hot spot, and you can swap this out for whatever color you'd like. With this complete, snip our thread free and paint it over with some UV resin. Here I'm using Solar Res in Bone Dry. Paint over the entirety of the body before fixing it in place with a UV light. At which point, we'll add a small drop to the back of the fly, filling in our bead, secure it in place with the UV light, and while it doesn't show through with my bead choice and black collar, if you use different colors, you can create a darker look to clear UV finish by taking a black Sharpie, coloring it over before letting it dry, and adding another drop of UV resin. Smooth it out before fixing it in place. And this is a purple perdigon, a favorite of mine to use in dark and dirty waters, or just use as an attractor. And I'd highly suggest giving it a try. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can find it in all competition anglers' fly boxes. And as always, thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This world-renowned fly pattern just got even better. To tie it, we'll start off with some red thread, insert some silver wire into our bead, helping to hold it in place, secure it tightly, wrapping it backwards, until we reach the bend of our hook. Here, we'll reverse our thread's direction, back up towards the head of the fly, and grab some hollow tinsel. Here I'm using medium in the color red. We'll secure this to our hook shank, once again wrapping backwards towards the bend of our hook, at which point we'll reverse our thread's direction, laying an even thread base towards the head of our fly. And if you'd like to have some of these for your fly box, you can submit a custom order, linked here. If you have a rotary vise, you can put in a few extra wraps before grabbing your hollow tinsel, wrapping it forward in close touching spirals. Secure it in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind before snipping your excess free. At which point we'll grab our wire and begin counter wrapping our hollow tinsel, this time in open spirals, doing so until we reach our thread. Secure tightly in place and helicopter your excess free. We'll then grab some peacock herl, strip off our tip, and secure it tightly in place at the head of our fly, before grabbing our feather and hackling it around the head of our fly in close touching spirals. Secure it in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind to help pinch it in place before snipping your excess free with finish to hold it all together. And this is a variation of a zebra midge that I like to use as an attractor pattern. And this one in particular makes a great dropper for brook trout, and I also often fish it in green, purple, as well as black. But of course, the variations are endless. So thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Fish can't resist this buggy soft tackle. To tie it, we'll start off with some white thread, secure it to our hook shank, and grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using copper. Insert the wire into your bead, secure it tightly, wrapping back towards the bend of our hook. And if you'd like to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. With this complete, we'll set our wire aside and grab some hare's ear. Here I'm using a blend of natural as well as brown. Mix them together, create a dubbing noodle, and begin wrapping this forward in close touching spirals, building up a transition as we work towards the head of the fly. You can continue to add or tighten your dubbing as needed. With this complete, we'll brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. Next, we'll grab our wire and start by taking 3 or 4 close touching spirals towards the back of the fly. This not only adds a slight hot spot to the back of the fly, but can also increase its durability by covering up some of the crucial tag ends. With this complete, we'll continue wrapping forward as normal in open spirals, doing so until we reach our thread, at which point we'll secure it in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind our wire, and helicoptering the excess free. And of course, brush it out once more to make sure it has a nice, buggy look. We'll then build up a small base at the head of our fly to help with our following steps. We'll then grab a rough grouse feather. This particular one comes from the clump of feathers located just above the tail. While here, I used rough grouse because they're plentiful in my area. A Hungarian partridge will work just as well. We'll pull the tips back snipping the excess free to create a small triangle, and use this to secure it to the head of the fly. Once secured tightly in place, we'll grab our feather, brushing the fibers backwards and hackling it around the head of the fly for 1 to 2 turns. Keeping it sparse will help to add a little more movement. Once happy, we'll secure it tightly in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the remaining feather to pinch it in place and snip your excess free. Next, we'll grab some more hairs here. I've used the same blend as before, but this time added a few more darker fibers. Create another dubbing noodle and spin this just in front of your soft hackle. This will help push it back and also add some buggy fibers just in front of it. And of course, brush everything out to give it that nice buggy look. Color in your thread with a Sharpie. Whip finish to create a collar and hold everything in place and snip your thread free. And this is a hare's ear soft hackle. While it's in a natural color, its movement still makes for a great attractor pattern. This particular variation is one I like to use in the springtime when March browns are starting to emerge from the water. And no matter the color, I'd highly suggest giving it a try. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This is one of the world's best trout flies, and today I'm going to show you how to tie it. We'll start off with a white thread, secure it to our hook shank, at which point we'll grab a pheasant tail, strip about 4 to 5 fibers free, and secure them tightly to our hook shank, wrapping backwards towards the start of our hook bend. Here, we'll reverse our thread's direction back up towards the hook eye, and grab some small wire. Here I'm using amber. We'll insert the wire into the bead to help hold it in place, secure it tightly with our thread, and once again, wrapping back towards our tail. We'll then grab the pheasant tail that we left attached, fold it backwards, and secure it in place. And once more, wrapping back up towards the hook eye, leaving a smooth base for our following step. At which point, we'll grab the pheasant tail and begin wrapping it forward in close touching spirals, trying to avoid any gaps so you can't see the thread underneath. Secure it tightly in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free. We'll then grab our wire and begin counter wrapping the pheasant tail, this time in open spirals, adding some shine and increasing the durability of our pattern. Secure it in place and helicopter your excess free. We'll then grab some dubbing of our choice. Here I'm using ice dubbing in the color pink. Create a tight dubbing noodle and begin wrapping it just in front of our pheasant tail, creating a prominent hot spot at the head of our fly. Whip finish to hold it all together. Snip your thread free. And this is one of my favorite variations of the Frenchie. Not only is it easy to tie, but it's also extremely productive. So I definitely suggest stocking up your fly box. And if you don't tie, you can always submit a custom order. I'd be happy to spin some up for you. And I will see you in the next one. Today, we're going to be tying a Euro grub. To tie it, we'll start off with some white thread, secure it to your hook shank, and snap the excess free. At which point, we'll insert some lead-free wire into our bead, secure it tightly in place, helicoptering your excess free. We'll then grab some latex, catch it with your thread, and begin securing it backwards to the start of our hook bend. Here, we'll reverse our thread's direction, wrapping back up towards the bead, before grabbing our latex and beginning to wrap it forward in close touching spirals, allowing each wrap to slightly overlap the last to help build up some bulk as we work up towards the thread. And if you'd like to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. Once we reach the thread, we'll secure it tightly in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the latex and snipping your excess free. We'll then grab some dubbing of your choice. Here I'm using a blend of hare's ear, some ice dubbing, and some black, creepy crawly dubbing. Blend them together, create a dubbing loop, inserting it into the loop before spinning it up and brushing it out to give it that nice, buggy look. With this complete, we'll begin hackling it around the head of our fly, pulling the fibers backwards in the process to trap a few less facing out towards the bead. At which point, we'll secure it tightly in place Snip the excess free, pulling free any loose or long fibers. And of course, brush it out to give it that nice, buggy look. Whip finish to hold it all together. And this is an extremely simple Euro grub. A simple buggy tie that actually works quite well, and something I like to tie up to imitate caddis. And if you want some for your fly box, you can put hashtag flies below to win this one, or submit a custom order on my website. And hopefully, I will see you in the next one. This is a unique fly that's great for pocket water trout. To tie it, we'll start off with a brown bead, securing our thread just in front. Before grabbing some holographic tinsel, here I'm using green. We'll secure the tinsel just in front of the bead, wrapping up towards the hook eye. Before securing our thread in place and snipping the excess free, at which point we'll slide our bead forward, securing our thread just behind it, before grabbing our tinsel, folding it over the bead, and securing it in place. This is a unique method to add a hotspot to your Euro nymph that I believe was created by Nathan White. You can find his information linked in the description below. With this secured, we'll snip the excess free, cover up our tag ends, and paint it over with some UV resin to add some durability. Fix in place with the UV light, and grab some coq de leon. We'll measure this to be about the size of our body, securing it tightly to the back of the fly. Continue securing up towards a bead before snipping your excess free. At which point, we'll insert a brass wire into our bead, securing it backwards towards our tail. With this complete, we'll reverse our thread's direction back up towards the bead and grab some pheasant tail. Strip a few fibers free, securing them to the hook shank, once again wrapping back towards our tail. Reversing your thread once more, back up towards the bead. At which point, we'll grab our pheasant tail and begin wrapping it forward in close touching spirals, doing so until we reach our thread. Secure it in place before snipping your excess free. We'll then grab our wire and begin counter wrapping the pheasant tail in open spirals. Secure it in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire before helicoptering your excess free. At which point we'll grab some dubbing. Here I'm using a Euro blend in the color green. Create a dubbing noodle and wrap this just in front of your pheasant tail, leaving a little bit of room at the head of your fly. And of course, brush it out to give it that nice, buggy look. Next, we'll grab a bit of brown hare's ear, create a loose dubbing noodle, wrapping it just in front of our previous dubbing ball. Pulling the fibers backwards and wrapping in front to help give it a brush back look. At which point, we'll grab some adhesive, painting it over our thread, and whip finishing to secure everything in place. Seat your knot. Snip the thread free and brush it out to give it that nice, buggy look. And this is a unique little nymph that I like to use in the springtime for pocket water trout. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This is a variation of one of Tim Camise's fly patterns, and it's an absolute trout magnet. To tie it, we'll start off with some inserting a lead-free wire into our bead to secure it in place. Helicopter your excess free and continue wrapping towards the bend of the hook. We'll then grab some coq de leon, strip a few fibers free, and measure it to be about the length of your hook shank, transferring the measurement and securing it tightly in place to the back of your fly. With it secured tightly, we'll wrap forward and snip the excess free. at which point we'll grab some extra small black wire, inserting it into the bead and securing it tightly in place, once again wrapping back towards the tail of our fly. We'll then lay down a smooth base, wrapping towards the head of our fly, before grabbing our wire and wrapping it forward in open spirals. Continue to do so until you reach your thread, at which point we'll secure it tightly in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire before helicoptering the excess free. With this complete, we'll then grab some orange ice dubbing, create a dubbing noodle, and begin wrapping this just behind your bead. Once complete, we'll whip finish. To hold it all together, seat our thread and snip your excess free. And this is a variation of Tim Camisa's sneak attack. You can find the original variation linked on his channel below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
We're going to be tying up a bucky or hare's ear. We'll start off with some tan thread, secure it to our hook shank, and snap the excess free. Continue wrapping till you reach the bend of your hook, then grab a rabbit mask. Snip a pinch of fibers free, measure them to length, and secure them to the back of your fly, securing the tag ends tightly to help build up the body and bring your thread forward. We'll then grab some gold wire, inserting it into our bead and wrapping back towards the tail, at which point we'll bring our thread forward and grab some ostrich herl. Here I'm using white. Secure the ostrich herl to your hook shank, once again wrapping back towards your tail, at which point we'll grab some hare's ear, create a dubbing noodle, and begin to wrap it forward in close touching spirals, building up a transition and stopping just short of our bead. At which point we'll grab our ostrich herl and begin wrapping it forward in open spirals, being careful not to pull too hard and break the ostrich off. Doing so until we reach our thread. Secure it tightly. Snip your excess free, grabbing your gold wire and counter wrapping the ostrich herl to add some durability and flash to our pattern. Secure the wire in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire, and helicoptering the excess free. And of course, brush everything out to give it a nice buggy look. We'll then grab some flashabou, secure it to the head of our fly, wrapping back towards our body, followed by a turkey flat. Snip a small clump free, about 8 to 10 fibers, securing it to the head of your fly, once again wrapping back towards our body, before creating another dubbing noodle, this time a bit looser than the first, and begin wrapping it forward in close touching spirals, continuing to add to our transition until we reach the head of the fly, adding a single thread wrap in front of it to help brush it back, and of course, brush everything out to give it a nice buggy look. Next, we'll fold over our turkey tail, secure it tightly to the head of our fly, followed by our flashabou, securing both in front as well as behind, and snipping the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything tightly in place. Snip your thread free and paint over the back with some UV resin, adding some durability and shine to our pattern. And this is how I personally like to tie hare's ears. Of course it's a bit buckier, but specifically I tie these to represent the profile of mayflies. And they work especially well in the spring and summer months. And I'd highly recommend giving it a try, both in natural, olive, as well as brown. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. We'll be tying up the world famous Frenchie, however it's going to be one of my favorite variations to use in the fall. To start, we'll insert a lead-free wire into our bead, secure it in place, and helicopter the excess free. Once complete, we'll continue wrapping until we reach the bend of the hook, and grab some white feathers. Strip a few feathers free and measure them to be about half the length of your hook shank. Secure them tightly to the back of the fly, and continue to secure the feathers forward to help build up a transition. snip the feathers free, and secure the tag ends. We'll then grab some brassy wire. Here I like to use amber. Insert the wire into the bead to help further secure it, wrapping over it with your thread, and continuing to secure it back towards your tail. At which point, we'll reverse our thread's direction back up towards the head of the fly. Here, you can keep the body thin, or do as I'm doing, and build up a body transition in order to add a slight bit of bulk. At which point, we'll begin to wrap our wire forward in open spirals, doing so until we reach our thread, at which point we'll secure it in place, taking thread wraps both in front, as well as behind the wire, and helicoptering the excess free. In order to add some flash, we'll grab some hollow tinsel, here I'm using silver, inserting into the bead and securing it tightly in place, wrapping back towards the beginning of our wire wraps, followed by some dubbing. Here I'm using ice dubbing in a mix of green, copper, and chartreuse. Create a dubbing noodle and begin to wrap this forward until you reach your bead, ensuring that your dubbing ball remains tight, and tightening or removing any extra dubbing as needed. With this complete, we'll fold over our hollow tinsel and secure it using our thread at the head of the fly. Snip the excess free and whip finish to hold everything in place. And this is a productive variation of the Frenchie that I like to use to imitate blue wing olives. And if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This fly pattern only requires one material and is sure to catch you some fish. To tie it, we'll insert a lead-free wire into our bead, secure tightly, and helicopter the excess free. At which point, we'll lay down a thread base, wrapping back towards the bend of our hook, before wrapping forward, back up towards the bead. We'll then grab some egg yarn, here I'm using orange, and secure it tightly to the head of our fly. With this secured, we'll add some extra bulk by wrapping our egg yarn around the hook shank, and fold it over to create a loop. Secure the loop in place using your thread, securing both in front of the yarn as well as behind, before snipping it free, leaving some extra material. Using this material to create a veil, spreading it over our loop, brushing it backwards, and securing it tightly in place, and whip finish to hold it all together. And this is a simple egg pattern that only takes a couple seconds to tie, so tie it up in all your favorite colors, and it will be sure to catch you some fish. And the best part about it is the more chewed up it gets, the better it looks. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This is a shockingly good fly pattern, and today I'm going to show you how to tie it. We'll start off with a Euro hook, along with a slotted tungsten bead. We'll start off by securing some purple thread to our hook shank before snapping the excess free. Insert some lead-free wire into your bead to help secure the bead in place, and helicopter the excess free. At which point, we'll continue wrapping back towards the bend of our hook. Grabbing some rusty brown feathers, pull about 5 to 10 fibers free, and measure them to be about a half a hook shank in length. We'll then create a small buildup at the back of our fly to help splay our tail apart, before securing it snugly in place. Continue securing the feathers forward before snipping the excess free. We'll then grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using wine. Insert the wire into the bead and secure it tightly in place, continuing to wrap backwards towards the back of our fly. At which point, we'll grab some dubbing. Here I'm using an ice dubbing in the color UV Dun. Create a dubbing noodle and begin wrapping this forward in close touching spirals, building up a transition as we work up towards the bead, making sure to leave a small amount of room at the head of our fly. At which point, we can grab our wire and begin wrapping it forward in close touching spirals to add some durability to the back of our fly, as well as create a hot spot, before opening up our wraps in open spirals until we reach our thread. Secure tightly in place by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. And of course, brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. We'll then grab some CDC feathers. Here I'm using the color rust. Secure it to the head of our fly, wrapping back on our dubbing slightly, before snipping the excess free and adding a single turn of CDC. A little bit goes a long ways. Secure it in place and snip the excess free. Pull everything backwards, adding a few wraps on top before grabbing some more ice dubbing, this time with an addition of some black and red fibers. We'll mix these together, creating a custom dubbing blend, create another dubbing noodle, and begin wrapping this in front of your CDC before brushing everything out to give it a nice, buggy look. Add a bit of UV resin to our thread wraps before whip finishing to hold it all together. Snip your thread free and zap it with a UV light. And this is the Duracell, an attractor pattern that I like to use year-round and works particularly well in dark and discolored water. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Today we're going to be tying a nymph that I like to fish in the fall. To start, we'll insert some lead-free wire into our bead, wrapping it halfway down our hook shank. At which point, we'll grab the lead-free wire and begin to wrap it forward towards our bead in order to add some more weight to our pattern. While I don't always say this, you can do this with any pattern in order to add some more weight. And this is one method I like to do so. We'll continue wrapping it forward in close touching spirals until we reach our bead. At which point, we'll secure it tightly in place with our thread, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and helicoptering the excess free. We'll then use our thread to help further secure it before wrapping towards the bend of the hook. We'll then grab a small piece of chenille, use a lighter to burn the tip, to help add durability, as well as create a head, and then use the lighter to burn down the sides, giving it a more rounded shape, like so. We'll secure about a 1/4 inch section, peeking out over the back of our fly, and secure it tightly in place. Continue securing up towards our lead-free wire to smooth out our body section, and snip the excess free. Wrapping back towards the back of our fly, and grabbing a partridge feather. Strip a few sections free, and secure them in place towards the back of your fly, making them a bit shorter than our chenille. Secure. Snip the excess free, and grab some hairs here dubbing. Here I'm using brown. Create a dubbing noodle, and begin wrapping this just in front of our partridge. We'll then brush it out to give it a nice buggy look, and add some character to our leg section. At which point, we'll grab some copper wire, secure it to the midsection of your fly, wrapping back towards your dubbing, and set it aside. We'll then grab 3 colors of hairs here: brown, black, and natural. Mix these together for a custom dubbing mix, and create another dubbing noodle. Adding these different colors is a great way to add character to your dubbing. With this complete, we'll begin wrapping it forward in close touching spirals, and continue to do so, adding or removing dubbing as needed until we reach the head of the fly. At which point, we'll grab our wire and use this to counter wrap our hairs here. This will help add a bit of shine as well as durability to our pattern. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind our wire, and helicopter the excess free. And of course, brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. Whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free, and this is a peeping October caddis, a pattern that represents a natural forage with a small hot spot, and for being this buggy, sinks incredibly fast in the water column. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This fly pattern should be in everyone's fly box. To tie it, we'll start off with some white thread and insert some lead-free wire into our bead. Secure it tightly with your thread and helicopter the excess free. We'll then continue wrapping till we reach the bend of the hook and grab some pink floss. Here I'm just using thread that I've doubled over several times. Secure the thread tightly to the back of your fly, continue securing to your hook shank, and snip the excess free. We'll then cut our tag end to length. You can make this as long or as short as you like. However, I think this pattern looks a little better when kept short. Next, we'll wrap our thread up to the head of the fly and grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using silver. Insert the wire into the bead and secure it tightly with your thread, wrapping back towards our tag end. Grabbing some natural colored hairs here, create a dubbing noodle, and begin to wrap this forward in close touching spirals, creating a slight transition towards the head of the fly. Continue doing so until you reach your bead. At which point we'll grab our wire and begin counter wrapping in open spirals in the opposite direction, doing so until you reach your thread. At which point we'll secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind your wire, and helicopter the excess free. We'll then brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. Next, we'll grab a CDC feather, split our thread, and insert the CDC into it. Snip the excess feather free and spin it up. We can then begin to hackle this around the head of our fly, pulling the fibers backwards as we go. You only want about 1 to 2 turns, and can remove any excess CDC as necessary. Trim it to the desired length, and add a bit more hare's ear dubbing to the head of your fly. Once complete, we'll whip finish, snip our thread free, and swap out to a hotspot color. Secure it in place, snip the excess free, and whip finish in order to build up a prominent hotspot. You can make this as thin as you'd like, however, I like to make mine quite prominent. And this is the blowtorch, a proven fly pattern that works exceptionally well, has infinite variations, and this particular one is one of my favorites to use for wild brook trout. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. If there are stoneflies in your water, this is a fly pattern that you won't want to be without. We'll start off with some olive thread, snap the excess free, and grab some silicone legs. Here I'm using olive. Create a loop with your legs and secure it tightly to the head of the fly, wrapping slightly into the bend, at which point further secure back towards our bead, and snip the excess free. We'll then whip finish, snip our thread free, sliding your bead forward once complete. Next, we'll trim our legs to length. I like them to be about the size of the hook shank. With this complete, we'll reattach our thread, pull the excess free, and continue wrapping until we reach the bend of the hook. Here we'll create a thread dam that'll be useful in our next step. Add another leg section to the back of our fly in a loop formation as we've done before. Secure it tightly and snip the excess free. Once again, trimming your legs to length. Once complete, they should look like this. We'll then grab some chenille. Here I'm using olive. However, a molted olive or a molted brown color looks even better. Strip the tips free and secure it tightly to the back of our fly, wrapping back towards the tail. Advance your thread slightly, set your chenille to the side, and secure another rubber leg in place. This time, we won't create a loop. We won't worry too much about the positioning of the legs at this time. Advance your thread forward and do the same just behind the bead. Secure tightly and snip them to a rough length. We'll then grab our chenille and start palmering it forward in close touching spirals. We'll use this to help position and prop up our legs. You want them to stick out sideways and not forward or too far backwards. However, one reason I like this pattern is because it's exceptionally buggy. So if your legs don't turn out quite right, it doesn't necessarily matter. We'll secure it in place with our thread, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the chenille and snipping the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free and trim up your legs to length. I like my back set of legs to be slightly shorter than the first set. But remember, the longer the legs, the more action you'll have in the water. And this is a mini Euro Pats. It's an extremely buggy pattern that works exceptionally well imitating stoneflies and larger insects. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This little fly is so good, it should be banned. However, I'm going to show you how to tie it. We'll start off with some black thread and grab some 6X tippet, along with some fluorescent green UV resin. Coat the tip of your tippet with UV resin and fix it in place with the UV light. Continue this process, building up a large bulb at the end of your tippet. Once happy with your results, continue wrapping your thread to the back of the hook shank and measure your tippet to be about half the length of your hook shank. Transfer the measurement to the back of the fly and secure it tightly in place. To help hold it in place, we can add one wrap behind our tippet, followed by a few securing wraps over the top. With this complete, we'll continue wrapping forward towards the bead. Snip the excess free, leaving a small amount to keep the body even. Continue securing the excess tippet towards the bead and grab some extra small wire. Here I'm using black. Insert the wire into your bead and secure it tightly to the hook shank. Continue securing your wire, wrapping back towards the bend of our hook. At which point, we'll reverse our thread's direction, once again taking care to ensure that our body remains even, and doing so until you reach the head of the fly, at which point we'll grab our wire and begin wrapping it forward towards the head of the fly in close touching spirals. Here, I'm using a rotating vise as it makes this process a little easier. However, it's not necessary to complete the pattern. Continue this process until we reach the head of the fly, at which point we'll secure the wire in place using our thread. Take thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicopter the excess free. We'll then grab just the tiniest bit of dubbing. Here I'm using black and chartreuse. Create a dubbing noodle and wrap this just behind the head of our fly. This step adds a thorax. However, the fly is meant to sink incredibly quickly, so don't add too much dubbing, and remove any excess. And whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free and brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. And this is a simple midge that can catch fish worldwide and has a unique little hotspot to help draw attention. Try it out in this color, or any pattern you can think of. And if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. We're going to be tying up one of the best variations of the band squirmy worm. We'll start with some hot pink thread, snip the excess free, securing the bead in place using some lead-free wire. Helicopter the excess free and continue wrapping to the bend of the hook, at which point we'll take a few wraps forward and grab some stretchy material. Here I'm using a rubber D-rib. However, I would suggest using a stretchy dental band that I've linked in the comments. Create a loop with your material and secure it to the back of the fly. Make sure your loop's secured tightly by taking securing wraps both in front as well as behind your loop and continue towards the head of the fly. Snip one of your excess bands free, once again continuing towards the head of the fly. We'll fold our rubber material backwards, take a few securing wraps towards the head of the fly, and once again create a loop in our rubber band, using your thread to secure it lightly in place at first. This way, by pulling on the opposite end, we can shrink the loop to the size we're looking for. Once happy, secure in place with your thread, and continue wrapping towards the bend of the hook. Snip your excess free, and use your thread to smooth out the body. Finishing at the head of the fly. Hold everything in place by whip finishing, snip your thread free, and paint over everything with some UV resin to add shine and durability to our pattern. Fix in place with the UV light, and grab some spare wire. Use the wire to string it through the two loops that we just created. And open up the loops at the end using a pair of tweezers. Next, we'll grab some squirmy worm material, here I'm using pink, insert it through our loop, and begin pulling the wire to help draw the squirmy worm material through the two loops. They should be quite tight to hold it in place. Once complete, remove the wire, snip the squirmy worm material to length. And this is an improved squirmy worm, suggested by Tim from the Trout and Feather. I've linked his full video in the comments below. It's an excellent pattern that promotes a lot of movement in the water and also can be replaced if the fish chew it up. I would highly suggest giving it a try. And as always, if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. We're going to be creating one of my favorite variations of one of the world's most popular flies. To start, we'll grab some black thread, secure it to our hook shank, continue wrapping back up towards the bead, inserting some lead-free wire and securing it tightly in place. Helicopter the excess free, and continue wrapping backwards until we reach the bend of the hook. At which point, we'll grab a black saddle hackle feather, strip free a few fibers, and secure them to the back of the fly, measuring them to be roughly the size of our body. At which point, we'll continue to secure the fibers to the top of the hook shank until we reach the bead. Snip the excess free, and grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using silver. Select a small piece of wire, inserting it into the bead, and securing it to your hook shank.
Continue wrapping backwards until you reach your tail. At which point we'll reverse our thread's direction once again and create a smooth body until we reach our bead. With this complete, we can grab our wire and begin to wrap it forward in open spirals, taking care to make sure that each wrap is evenly spaced. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and helicoptering the excess free. We'll then grab some straggle string, here I'm using black, securing the strand tightly just behind our bead, and then begin to hackle it forward for 1 to 3 turns. Secure with your thread, taking care not to trap any fibers. Snip the excess free and whip finish to hold everything together. And this is one of my favorite variations of the zebra midge. The straggle string adds a little bit of a hot spot and gives it an extra buggy look. It's simple to tie, durable, and will definitely catch you some fish. And if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below.
Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for fishing your egg patterns? Well then this fly is for you. To tie it, we'll start off with some black thread and an oversized orange bead. We'll insert a lead-free wire into our bead to help hold it in place. Secure tightly with your thread and helicopter the excess free. We'll continue building up a thread dam just behind our bead and grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using silver. Insert the wire into our bead and secure it tightly with your thread, continuing to wrap towards the bend of our hook, stopping just before the start of the bend, at which point we'll reverse our thread's direction, ensuring that we have tight thread wraps to smooth out our body, and continue to do so until you reach the bead, at which point we'll grab our thread and begin to wrap it forward, starting with a close spiral at the beginning of the fly, after which opening it up to open spirals and continuing to do so until we reach our thread. At which point we'll secure the wire in place by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. We'll then grab some peacock herl, select a single strand and secure it to the head of our fly. Wrap your thread forward and begin hackling the peacock forward in close touching spirals until you reach your thread. With this complete, we'll secure the peacock herl in place and snip the excess free. And this is a fast sinking egg pattern disguised as a zebra midge. I'd highly suggest adding a few to your fly box for that fast moving water or pocket water trout. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
This buggy attractor pattern can help you catch more fish. To tie it, we'll start off with some olive thread, continue wrapping until you reach the bend of your hook, and grab some green synthetic dubbing. Align the fibers and secure them to the back of the fly. Continue securing the synthetic fibers forward until you reach your hook eye. At which point, we'll snip the excess free and cut our tail to length. Next, we'll grab some small wire, here I'm using green, as well as some clear, hollow tubing. Insert the wire into your tubing and secure it by inserting it into the bead and wrapping it tightly to the hook shank, continuing to do so until we reach our tag, at which point we'll reverse our thread's direction and create a smooth body, wrapping towards the head of the fly. With this complete, we'll grab our wire and tubing and begin to wrap this forward in close touching spirals. This is a cool technique that creates an interesting segmentation and will take on the color of whatever underbody you decide to place below it. Continue to wrap it forward until you reach your thread, at which point we'll secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free, at which point we'll whip finish, snip our thread free, swapping it out for a fluorescent orange thread. We'll then grab some more dubbing. This time I've mixed in some copper, green, and olive. Create a dubbing noodle and wrap this just behind our bead, saving a little bit of room at the head of the fly. And then brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. Once complete, we'll create a dubbing loop and grab some squirrel dubbing. Insert this into our dubbing loop, spin it up, and begin wrapping it around the head of the fly, brushing the fibers backwards as you go. secure with your thread, and snip the excess free. Whip finishing to add a hot spot to the head of our fly. Snip your thread free, and this is an attractor pattern that I love to use for pocket water trout. It doesn't mimic anything in particular, but agitates water and attracts attention, and adding a small midge behind it can be a deadly combination. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Today, we're going to be making a guppy that I like to use to swing through the current. To start, we'll grab some white thread, continue wrapping until you reach the bend of the hook, and grab a mallard flank. Pull free a few fibers and secure them to the back of the fly. Continue securing to the hook shank until you reach your bead. Snip the excess free and wrap your thread back down to the hook point. Next, we'll grab some crystal flash. Here I'm using UV pearl, securing a single strand to the hook shank, folding it over, and attaching it to the other side, and wrap back to the hook point. Next, we'll grab some peacock herl. Select about 3 strands, invert your hook, and secure it to the bottom of our fly. Continue securing until we reach our tail, wrapping back up to the bead, and securing some more crystal flash, once again wrapping back down towards the tail. With this complete, use your thread to build up a smooth body, finishing just before the bead. Next, we'll grab our crystal flash and begin to wrap this in close touching spirals until we reach our thread, at which point we'll secure and snipping the excess free. We'll then grab some egg yarn. Here I'm using a light pink. Select a small clump, folding it over your thread, wrapping it slightly back to the body of the fly. Fold over the egg yarn to create a small egg sac and secure it using your thread. Once secure, snip the excess free. Fold over your peacock and secure it to the top of the fly, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and snipping the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free and grab some thin UV resin to paint over the fly. Once happy, secure with the UV light, adding some thick UV resin over the top of our fly to create a rounded shape. Take your time with this and only secure it once you're happy. We'll then grab some eyes. Add a little bit of UV resin to the side of the bead, carefully placing the eye and securing it once happy. Repeat this step to the other side and add some more UV resin to fill in the gap. I like to use this fly during high water. Swinging across the current like a wet fly can result in some aggressive strikes, but it also works well under an indicator. If you'd like to win this fly, comment #flytying in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
Do you want a fly pattern that can catch fish worldwide, yet is highly simple to tie? Well, today, I'm going to show you how to make it. We'll start off with some black thread and grab some small wire. Here I'm using copper. Strip a small section free, inserting it into your bead and securing it tightly to your hook shank. Continue securing until you reach the bend of your hook, at which point we'll reverse our thread's direction back up towards the head of the fly and grab a ruffed grouse feather. I like to use the red phase. However, you can also use pheasant tail. Secure the grouse to the hook shank, once again wrapping back towards the bend of the hook. With this complete, we'll reverse our thread's direction and begin to build up a body transition towards the head of the fly. In order to do so, simply wrap back almost to your starting point, at which point you'll reverse your thread's direction, wrapping back up towards the head of the fly. Continue repeating this process until you reach the head of the fly, at which point we'll grab our ruffed grouse feather and begin wrapping it forward in close touching spirals. Do note that grouse feathers are slightly shorter than pheasant tail, so you'll have to work with a smaller fly. Here, I'm using a size 14, which is about as small as you can go. Secure it tightly with your thread, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and snip the excess free. We'll then grab our wire and begin to wrap it in open spirals, counter wrapping our grouse feather. This will help add durability as well as a little bit of shine to our pattern. Once you reach your thread, secure tightly, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and helicoptering the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free and swap your thread out to your favorite hotspot color. Here I'm using orange, but pink or chartreuse are great alternatives. And whip finish to build up some bulk. And this is a simple pheasant tail, or in this case, ruffed grouse dropper. If you're not sure what dropper fly to select, this is a great go-to, as it can represent many aquatic insects. And if you'd like to win this, comment #flies in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Today, I'm going to be sharing a secret that fly tyers don't want you to know. But to start, we'll grab some orange thread and snap the excess free. Continue wrapping your thread to the back of the hook and create a thread dam that'll be important for our next step. Once complete, grab some brown biots, strip off 2 and place them in a V formation. We'll measure them to be about the length of the hook shank and secure them to the back of the fly. The thread buildup will help display them out. Secure the biots tightly and begin wrapping towards the bead. Once complete, snip the excess free and grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using copper. Insert the wire into the bead, secure it tightly, and wrap back towards the tail. Next, we'll grab one of my favorite dubbing blends, you can find it in the links below, create a dubbing noodle, and begin wrapping it around our hook shank, building up a taper as we work towards the head of the fly. Take your time with this and tighten the dubbing noodle as needed. Now remember, start with a little bit because you can always add more. Next, we'll grab our wire and begin wrapping in open spirals towards the head of the fly. Secure tightly, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. And then we'll brush out the body to give this fly a nice buggy look. Pull any excess fibers free and add a very loose dubbing noodle, wrapping this just around the head of the fly. Pull everything back and add a couple thread wraps in front. With this complete, brush it out once again to give it a nice buggy look. And this is a fly called Scruffy, and while it may not look pretty, I prefer fishing these buggy flies. So remember, if you're new to fly tying, don't get discouraged by seeing someone's pretty fly, because a fly like this is likely to catch more fish anyway. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This underutilized fly pattern is one of the best at catching brook trout. To tie it, we'll start off with some pink thread, secure it to our hook shank, and insert some lead-free wire to hold our bead in place. Helicopter the excess free, and continue wrapping until you reach the hook bend. Next, we'll grab some pink crystal flash, select about 4 strands, and secure them to the back of the fly. Continue securing the crystal flash up the hook shank, and snip the excess free. Next, we'll grab some small wire. Here I'm using rust. Insert it into the bead, securing it to the hook shank and wrapping until we reach our tail. We'll then grab some squirrel. This one was sent to me by Carson R, so thank you for sending that along. Strip some of the natural fibers free and create some dubbing. We'll then create a dubbing noodle and begin wrapping it forward until we reach our bead. Doing so in close touching spirals and building up a transition that increases as we move towards the head of the fly. Continuing to add and tighten the dubbing as needed. Once our thread reaches the head of the fly, grab your wire and begin to wrap it forward in open spirals, counter-wrapping the dubbing. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. With this complete, we'll brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. Next, we'll grab some dubbing. Here I'm using a pink synthetic UV dubbing. Create another dubbing noodle and begin wrapping it around the head of our fly. Whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free and brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. And this is the pink squirrel, an extra buggy pattern that works particularly well to catch brook trout. You can tie it up with the materials below or submit a custom order form on my website and I'll tie some up for you. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. You have to try this simple fly pattern. To start, we'll grab some monofilament wire and secure it to our hook shank. And grab some lead-free wire. We'll insert this into our bead, secure it in place, and helicopter the excess free. Next, we'll grab some mylar. Here I'm using pearl, secure it
to the head of the fly. Continue wrapping to the bend of the hook, at which point we'll reverse our directions back to the bead. With this complete, we'll begin to wrap our mylar forward in closed touching spirals, doing so until we reach our thread. We'll secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the mylar free. With this complete, whip finish to hold everything together. Snip your thread free and paint over the body with some UV resin. This will add shine and durability to our pattern. Fix with the UV light, and this is the mercury drop. It's easy to tie, sinks fast, and is completely indestructible. If you fish for pocket water trout, I would definitely suggest giving it a try, and I will see you in the next one.
Tired of throwing away your squirmy worms? Well, this pattern is for you. We'll start with some flat black thread, attach it to our hook shank, and snip the excess free. Continue wrapping to the bend of the hook and grab some squirmy worm material. Here I've selected to use this light blue color, glows in the dark. Secure the material in place by taking some loose thread wraps at first and beginning to wrap tighter and tighter to secure it to the hook shank. This will help prevent your thread from cutting through the material, ruining your fly. Snip your squirmy worm material to length and select some medium green wire. Insert this into your bead and secure it tightly, wrapping back towards our tail. We'll then select a dubbing blend. Here I've used chartreuse, green, and copper ice dubbing. Create a dubbing noodle and begin wrapping this up your fly, creating transition towards the bead. You can tighten your dubbing and add more material as needed. We'll stop just short of the bead, grab our wire, and begin to counter wrap in open spirals till we reach our thread. This will help further secure the dubbing in place. Secure by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. For the head of the fly, I've selected some black hare's ear and peacock ice dubbing. Blend these two materials, create a dubbing noodle, and wrap this around the head of your fly. Once complete, we'll brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. This fly is excellent at catching fish, but still functions as a great caddis pattern once the tail is lost. Highly suggest stocking up on a few of these, as they can be a great chimeric fly. You can find them on my website listed below, and if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.
Today, we'll be tying a nymph that's been used to win several fly fishing competitions. To tie it, you can grab a Coq de Leon feather, or I'm just using a black saddle hackle. Strip away a few feathers and secure them to the back of the fly. We want these to be about the same length as our hook shank, and snip the excess free. Next, we'll grab some pearl flashabou, secure it to the head of our fly, wrapping back towards the tail. Complete, we'll reverse our thread's direction and begin building up a body transition towards the head of the fly. Your finished product should look something like a carrot, and it will help hold our bead in place. Once complete, we'll start wrapping our flashabou forward in closed touching spirals, doing so until we reach our thread. Secure with your thread and snip the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free and paint over the body section with some UV resin. This will add shine and durability to our pattern. Fix with a UV light and steal your wife's or your girlfriend's eyeshadow and mix it up with some thin UV resin. Add a small drop to cover the bead as well as the body section and hit it with a UV light. And this is the Gasolina, a highly productive fly pattern that is likely in every competition angler's fly box. And there's a reason for that, so I would highly suggest giving this one a shot. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
This productive pattern was banned for use in competitions, and today I'm going to show you how to tie it. We'll secure some white thread to the hook shank and snap the excess free. We'll prevent our bead from spinning around the hook by inserting some lead-free wire, securing it, and helicoptering the excess free. Lay down a thread base until you reach your hook point. We'll then grab my new favorite mop material called Galaxy Mop. You can pick it up from the J Stockard website for 15% off using the code above. This particular one is in tan. Secure the mop material tightly to the top of your hook shank, and if you want it to be extra secured, you can add some super glue. Snip your Galaxy Mop to length. and wrap your thread to the head of the fly. Here, we'll fold over our thread, create a loop, and wrap it back towards the mop material. Return your thread to the head of the fly, leaving us with this dubbing loop. Next, we'll grab some dubbing. Here I'm using a laser dubbing in tan. Insert it into our dubbing loop and spin it up. We'll then brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. We'll wrap our dubbing up the body until we reach the thread. Secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free. Finish it off by brushing it out to give it an extra buggy look. And this is the Galaxy Mop, one of my new favorite variations of the mop fly to fish. You can pick up all the materials needed to tie this fly by clicking the JStalker link below. Additionally, JStalker has provided a $25 gift card to one lucky winner. To win, comment #JStalker in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
If you're new to fly tying, then this pattern is for you. To start, we'll grab some extra small wire. Here I'm using black. Insert it into our bead and secure tightly with your thread back towards the tail, and finishing just before you hit the bend of the hook. Once complete, reversing your thread's direction back towards the bead. Next, we'll grab some vinyl ribbing. Here I'm using the size midge in olive. Secure tightly to your hook shank, wrapping back towards the tail. Bringing your thread forward once again. With this complete, we'll begin to wrap our vinyl wire forward, doing so in close touching spirals. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind our vinyl ribbing, and snip the excess free. Grab your black wire and begin to wrap this forward in the grooves of our vinyl wire. Take your time on the first wraps, and the remaining ones will fall in place easily, continuing to do so until we reach our thread, at which point we'll secure, once again taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and helicoptering the excess free. And this is a beginner-friendly midge pattern that also makes a great pattern for pocket water trout. If you don't tie and would like to try it out for yourself, you can find it on my website. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
These color combinations are underutilized and are great for wintertime trout. We'll start off with some white Vivas thread. Here I'm using 12/0. Secure it to our hook shank and snap the excess free. Bring your thread to the head of the fly and insert a lead-free wire. We'll secure it tightly, helicoptering the excess free. This will help hold our bead in place. Wrap to the back of the fly and grab some blue crystal flash. We'll measure out a single strand to be the length of the hook shank and secure it to the back of the fly, wrapping forward until we reach our lead-free wire, at which point we can snip the excess free. Next up, we'll grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using blue. Place it into the slot of our bead and secure it tightly to the hook shank, wrapping back towards the tail. We will then use our thread to create a nice smooth thread transition to the head of our fly. Once complete, we can grab our brassy wire and start wrapping that in open spirals towards the head of the fly. Secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and helicoptering the excess free. Grab some UV resin and paint that over our body. This will add durability, but also a nice shine to our pattern. Fix in place with a UV light and grab some dubbing. Here I've used a synthetic UV hare's ear. Create a dubbing noodle and wrap this tightly around the head of our fly. Grab a blue Sharpie and color in our white thread. Use a whip finisher to secure everything in place and create a nice blue hotspot at the head of our fly. This is a great combination of colors that happen to work well for trout. If you'd like to try this fly, but don't tie yourself, you can visit my fly shop in the link below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This is a must-have fall fly that never leaves my fly box. We'll start it out with some black Vivas thread, secure it to our hook shank, snapping the excess free. We will then grab some silver brassy wire, insert it into the slot of our tungsten bead, securing it tightly to our hook shank, wrapping towards the back of the hook. We want to make sure we create a nice smooth thread base all the way to the back of the fly. Once we reach the bend of the hook, we will reverse the direction and wrap back towards the head of the fly, maintaining a nice smooth body. We can now begin to wrap our wire forward. We'll do so by taking evenly spaced open spiral wraps until we reach the head of the fly. Once complete, we will secure by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind our wire and helicoptering the excess free. Next, we will grab some black hare's ear dubbing, create a dubbing noodle, dubbing the thorax just behind the bead of our fly. Once complete, we will brush this free, giving it a nice buggy look. Pull any excess fibers free and grab a whip finisher. And this is my personal variation of a Euro zebra midge. It never leaves my fly box and is very successful in fall and winter. If you'd like to win this fly, like the video, subscribe for more, and comment #flies in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Today we're going to be making a fly that catches fish and is excellent for the beginner tire. To start this pattern, we'll use some black Vivus thread. Continue wrapping till you reach the bend of your hook. Now here, we will build up a small thread dam. This will be useful in the next step. Grab some brown biots. We'll select 2 individual biots, placing them into a V shape, each splaying outward. Measure these to be roughly the size of your hook shank, and transfer the measurement to the back of the fly. We will secure them tightly, wrapping back onto the thread dam that we created. This will help splay the tips of the biot outward, giving them a stonefly-like look. Further secure the biots by wrapping up towards the bead. This will start to build up our body. Cut the excess free, and grab some brass wire. Here I'm using brassy. Insert the wire into the slot of our bead, secure it, wrapping backwards towards the biots. Once completed, we'll wrap our thread forward, leaving it just behind the bead of our fly. We'll grab our brassy wire and begin to wrap this forward in touching spirals. If you leave a gap in your wire, just as I've done here, there's no reason to worry about it. The fish don't care and will still happily take this pattern. However, by pulling your wire slightly backwards on each wrap, it's more likely to fall into place adjacent to the next one, creating a much more smooth finish. We'll continue wrapping our wire forward until we reach our thread, at which point we'll secure it in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and helicoptering the excess free. We'll grab a single piece of peacock herl, attach that to the head of our fly, securing tightly, returning our thread back to the bead. We'll begin to hackle this around the thorax towards the head of our fly. Once we reach the thread, we can secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, snipping the excess free. Whip finishing to complete this pattern. Not only does this pattern catch fish, but it also teaches you a lot of fundamentals about fly tying. If you thought about getting into it, or just starting, this would be a great place to begin. And if you'd like to support the channel while gathering the materials you need, I have linked that in the description below. And I will see you in the next one. Most fishermen aren't using this productive fly. To start this pattern, we'll grab some uni thread in red. Here I'm using 8/0. Secure it tightly to your hook shank and snap the excess free. Grab yourself some lead-free wire, jam it into the bead, and secure the wire tightly to the hook shank. This will help prevent your bead from spinning around the hook. With your wire secured, helicopter free, and secure a second piece of wire, wrapping back towards the bend of our hook. Return your thread towards the middle of the hook shank and begin wrapping your lead-free wire in closed spirals until you reach your thread. Secure by taking several thread wraps around your lead-free wire and helicopter the excess free. We will then begin covering our lead-free wire using our thread to create a thread dam. The lead-free wire is there to add weight as well as reduce the number of thread wraps we have to take to build up a body. Once complete, secure your thread in place and snip the excess free. Grab some UV resin and paint this over the thread dam that we just created. Take your time to build up a nice even coat without adding too much at one time. Once happy, we'll secure in place with a UV light, adding one more layer of resin to build up some extra bulk. Once again, secure with a UV light, reattaching our thread at the head of the fly. I've now switched over to a 12/0 Vivus. Snap the excess free and grab some dubbing. Here I'm using a reddish brown hare's ear, creating a dubbing noodle, and creating a small buildup just in front of our resin. Next, we'll grab some grizzly saddle hackle, select 2 tips and place them in a V formation. We'll tie these directly in front of our dubbing, wrapping back towards the hook point. Take your time with this and reorient the wings as needed. Once happy, continue securing tightly, snip the excess free, grabbing a brown cape. Select a single feather, strip off the fibers, and tie this onto the body of our fly. Secure tightly and snip the excess free. Next, we will create another dubbing noodle, wrapping up the body until we reach our bead, brushing it out to give it a nice buggy look. We will then begin hackling our feather forward in open spirals until we reach the head of the fly. Secure by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free. And this is a variation of the sunken ant, a pattern that often gets overlooked by fishermen but is highly productive in the summer months. If you'd like to win this fly, like the video, subscribe, and comment #flies below. We're going to be tying a natural biot midge. We'll start off with some flat black thread and secure that to our hook shank. We'll then secure our bead in place by inserting a lead-free wire and securing it to the hook shank. Helicopter the excess free and continue wrapping towards the bend of our hook. We will then select a biot. Here I'm using the lead wing of a turkey. We'll select a single biot and secure that to the back of our fly. We'll take further securing wraps as we move towards the head of the fly. Then you can use your fingers or a pair of hackle pliers to wrap your biot in closed spirals towards the head of the fly. Biots are an incredible natural material to work with because of these small little feathers that give a 3D effect. Once we reach the head of the fly, we'll secure it in place and snip the excess free. Next, we'll grab some gray or natural hare's ear dubbing, create a dubbing noodle, and wrap that onto the biot slightly, as well as a thread base towards the head of the fly. Pull any excess free and brush our dubbing out, giving it a nice buggy look. This is a very successful natural pattern that'll work well anywhere you find midges, mosquitoes, and other small insects. For your chance to win this fly, you can go to the comments and comment #flies for your chance to win. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. If you want to catch more fish, today's fly is for you. To start this pattern, we'll grab some 140 UTC in fluorescent pink, secure that to the hook shank, and snip the excess free. Continue to the bend of the hook, grabbing some pink squirmy worm material. We'll secure this tightly to the back of the fly, wrapping towards the bead. Flatten the body out as much as you can, but don't worry about it too much because we'll be covering it in our next step. Once we're happy with how the tail looks, grab a second piece of squirmy worm material, tying it on the body of your fly, wrapping back towards the tail. Once complete, return your thread to the head of the fly and begin wrapping your squirmy worm material in loose spirals. Pulling the material too tight can result in it falling apart after the first fish. Once you reach your thread, secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free. We will then whip finish to hold it in place. If you want to win this fly, comment #flies below, and if you would like to support the channel and purchase a few, you can visit my website. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This fly is so successful that it was actually banned from competition fishing. To tie it, we'll start off with some black thread, attach that to our hook, and insert a lead-free wire to help hold our bead in place. Secure it to the hook shank, and helicopter free. We can then build up a small thread dam behind our thread and wrap to the head of the fly. We'll grab our mop material and attach that to the head of the fly. We'll do so by taking several tight thread wraps to fix it in place. Once complete, we'll snip it to about 2 hook shanks in length, snipping it free by rounding off the tail. Next, we'll grab synthetic peacock and hare's ear dubbing, blend these together, and create a dubbing noodle around our thread. We can then start wrapping this around the head of the fly. We want to build up a fairly prominent base of dubbing, so if you run out, you can always add some more. Once complete, we will brush it out, giving it a nice buggy look. Secure by whip finishing and snipping your thread free. The mop fly is a very easy and extremely productive pattern. I've created some fly kits, so if you want to try this exact pattern as well as another one, you can check that out in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
We're going to be tying my favorite variation of the Frenchie. We're going to be using a Euro style hook along with some orange thread. This in particular is Vivis in size 12/0. We'll start our thread wraps right behind the bead of the hook. Snap that off, and then we'll put in some lead-free wire to help keep that bead in place. Helicopter that free, and then wrap our thread all the way to the start of the hook bend. From here, we'll build up a small thread dam and grab some pheasant tail. We're going to use about 3 fibers, rip those off and measure them to be about 1/4 of the hook shank in length, and we'll attach that to the back of our hook. Once we're done with that, we can continue to secure that pheasant tail by wrapping up to the start of our lead-free wire. Snap those free and you can see why we added this thread dam. This splays out our pheasant tails and gives it a mayfly-like appearance. Next up, we'll grab some brassy wire. Here we're going to be using a copper color. Tie that into your hook shank, and then we'll wrap it all the way back to the tail of our fly. We'll return our thread to the start of our lead-free wire, grab some more pheasant tail. This time we'll grab about 5 to 6 fibers, snip off the tips, and then tie them onto our hook shank. With that complete, we will wrap our thread all the way up to the head of the fly, put it in a half hitch, and move our threads off to the side. Now we can begin to wrap our pheasant tail, and we're going to wrap this almost all the way to the head of the fly, leaving just a little bit of room. Take some thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and then snip the excess free. After which, we'll grab our brassy wire and start to wrap that up in open spirals. When we reach the head, we'll secure it and then helicopter that free. Next up, we're going to grab some dubbing. This in particular is a pheasant tail ice dubbing that includes some UV fibers. So we'll create a dubbing noodle and wrap a nice tight dubbing section at the head of our fly. Finishing off at the head of the fly, we'll grab our whip finisher and create quite a strong band at the front of our fly. And this is our completed Frenchie. This is one of my favorite variations to use for brook trout. And if you want to try some of these out for yourself, you can visit my website down below and I'd be happy to tie some up for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
We're going to be tying a rainbow warrior. We'll start off with some Vivis 16/0 in white. However, I recommend you use red. Secure your thread to the hook shank, snapping the excess free. We'll wrap back up to our tungsten bead, insert a lead-free wire, and secure it tightly. Once complete, we'll helicopter free and build up a small thread dam to keep our lead-free wire in place. We can then wrap to the back of the fly and grab some pheasant tail. Before we start, we will make a small buildup of thread on the back of the fly and then grab 3 fibers of pheasant tail. We'll secure that to the back of the fly, and the small thread base allows the pheasant tail to splay out. We will then further secure the pheasant tail to the hook shank and pull the excess free. We will then grab some silver wire. Here I'm using brassy. Insert that into our bead and secure it, wrapping back towards the tail of our fly. And then wrap back up right before our lead-free wire. We'll grab a piece of mylar, securing it to the hook shank and wrapping back once again to the tail of our fly. At this point, we can wrap our thread all the way up to the head of the fly, and begin to wrap our mylar forward. We'll do so in closed spirals, slightly overlapping the last wrap. Once at the head of the fly, we'll take securing wraps both in front as well as behind our mylar and snip the excess free. We'll repeat the steps with our silver wire, except this time we will wrap it forward in open spirals. Once again securing and helicoptering the excess free. We will then grab some dubbing. Here I've made a nice custom mix of some tans, pink, purple, and blue. Create a dubbing noodle and wrap that tightly around the head of our fly. Whip finish. Because I didn't use a red thread, I grabbed some Vivas. This is a body quilt in a nice red shiny color. We'll attach that around the head of our fly, creating a nice little hotspot. Details on how to win this fly are in the comments below. This fly works particularly well with rainbow trout, however it is a great attractor pattern for just about all species of trout. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Today, we'll be tying an open wound fly suggested by our Discord admin. To start this pattern, we'll attach some black Vivas thread to our hook shank, snapping the excess free. We will then insert a small lead-free wire in order to hold our bead in place, secure tightly, and helicopter the excess free. We will then wrap our thread back just before the bend of the hook. Grab a turkey tail, selecting 3 fibers, and secure them tightly to the back of the fly. Once complete, we can snap the excess free and wrapping back towards the bead. We will then grab some silver brassy wire, insert that into our bead, securing it tightly to our hook shank and wrapping back towards the tail. We will then begin to build up a body transition towards the head of the fly. Once finished, we can begin wrapping our wire forward, and we will do so in open spirals, keeping the wraps spaced as evenly as possible. Once we reach our thread, we will secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and helicoptering the excess free. We will now grab some salmon-colored UV synthetic dubbing and create a small hotspot just behind the bead of our fly. We want to make this dubbing ball as tight as possible. For this next step, in order to give it an extra buggy look, we will create what's known as a dubbing loop, inserting some black hare's ear, spinning it, and using a tool to brush it out. With the dubbing loop complete, we will begin to wrap it around the head of our fly, and as you can see, it gives it an extra buggy look. Secure tightly, snipping the excess free. Once finished, brush everything out to give it a nice buggy look. And that is the open wound. Although I've never personally fished it, it's easy to see that this will be highly successful. If you would like to make fly suggestions for the channel, you can visit our Discord server below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
Today, we're going to be tying up one of my favorite blueing olive nymphs. For this particular pattern, we're going to be using an olive thread. This one is a Vivas thread in size 14/0. We'll start by securing our thread to the hook, snapping it free, and moving our thread to the back of the fly. Here we'll create a small thread dam that's going to be important for our next step. We'll grab a light colored feather, and we're going to use this for our tail. Measure it out to be about 1/4 to 1/2 the hook shank in length. Tie that into the back and secure. Our little thread dam is going to help fan out these fibers so they don't stick together. After our tail is secure, we can move our thread up to the head of the fly, further securing the feather as we go, and then snipping the excess free. After that, we will grab a gold brassy wire and use this to prevent our bead from spinning around. So we'll secure the wire to the hook and wrap that all the way back to the tail of our fly. Our next step is to create a small body transition towards the head of the fly. A simple way to do this is wrap your thread almost to the head of the fly and then bring it all the way back till you almost reach the tail section. You'll then repeat these steps till you return to your starting point. After which we will grab our wire and begin twisting it up in open spirals towards the head of our fly.
Once complete, we will secure using our thread, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and helicoptering the wire free. Our next step is to grab some mylar. This particular one is in pearl, but you can use whatever you'd like. And we will secure that to the head of our fly, taking some thread wraps a little further back onto the wire, grabbing some hare's ear dubbing. This one in particular is in olive brown, but you can use whatever you'd like to match the hatch in your area. We'll create a dubbing noodle and begin spinning that around the front section of our fly. Once you are happy with your dubbing, you can take a wrap in front to secure. Next, we'll grab a dubbing brush, and you're going to want to brush away from the center of your fly. And what this is going to accomplish is we're trying to recreate a mayfly. Mayflies have pretty prominent legs that stick out towards the side. You can see that this is giving us an effect of legs kind of sticking out. Once we're happy, we'll pull the fibers down, grab our mylar, fold it over, secure both in front and behind, and snip free. With that complete, we can whip finish, pull tight, and snip free. Next, you can pull away any fibers that you aren't happy with. Grab some UV resin and apply this to the back and head of the fly to seal everything together. And I also like to, as always, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, hit that like button. It helps my channel out a lot. And if you want to see more patterns just like this, you can always hit subscribe. And I will see you in the next video.
If you fish for trout, this is a must-have fly. To start this pattern, we'll grab some Vivas in black, securing it tightly to our hook shank. Snap the excess free and fix our bead in place with a lead-free wire. Secure the lead-free wire tightly and helicopter the excess free. Next, we'll build up a small thread dam behind our lead-free wire and grab a piece of olive vinyl. Secure that just behind our lead-free wire and wrap back towards the bend of our hook. Once complete, we'll reverse directions, further securing our vinyl wire and leaving a bit of room at the head of the fly. We can begin to wrap our vinyl wire forward in closed, touching spirals. We'll continue to do so until we reach our thread. If you would like to win this fly, like the video, click subscribe, and comment #flies in the comments below. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure the vinyl wire by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snip the excess free. We'll then grab some black hare's ear, create a dubbing noodle, and wrap that around the head of our fly, tightening the dubbing noodle as needed. And finally, brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. Pull any excess fibers free, whip finish, and that is our finished fly. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This fly resulted in catching my largest steelhead to date, and today I'm going to show you how to tie it. To start this fly, we'll use some Vivas in orange. Bring your thread to the head of the fly and insert a lead-free wire. This step will help secure our tungsten bead in place. Helicopter the excess free and continue wrapping into the bend of the hook. We'll then start to build up a small thread dam, and we will use this in our next step. Grab some brown biots. Select 2 biots and put them into a V shape, securing them to the back of the fly. We'll take time to wrap back into the thread dam we just created. This will result in helping to splay out our biots in a V shape. We will then further secure our biots and start to build up a body transition. We'll then grab some hot orange brassy wire, securing it tightly to the hook shank and wrapping back towards our biots. We will then grab a orange vinyl D-rib, secure this to our body, wrapping back towards our biots. With this step complete, we will take the time to build up a nice smooth thread transition. and begin wrapping our vinyl D-rib forward in closed touching spirals. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and snipping the excess free. We will then grab our brassy wire, wrapping it forward until we reach our thread. Secure tightly, taking wraps both in front as well as behind and helicoptering the excess free. Next, we'll select a small piece of uni mylar, this one is in pearl, and secure it to the top of our fly, wrapping back onto our vinyl ribbing. Then we'll grab a turkey tail, select about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch section, securing it above our mylar. We will then grab some orange silicone legs, attaching them to either side of our fly and securing it tightly. Once complete, we'll use our scissors to snip them to length. We will then grab some dubbing. Here I'm using some orange ice dubbing. Create a dubbing noodle and wrap this tightly around our body, being careful not to trap the legs in the process. Continue wrapping your dubbing until you reach the head of the fly. Fold over our turkey tail, secure it, followed by our mylar. Once secure, we'll snip them free and whip finish to hold everything in place. Snipping your thread free once complete, we will grab some UV resin and paint this over the back of our fly. This step will add durability but also give our fly pattern a nice shine. Once happy, we will secure it in place with a UV light and finally brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. Many people ask if I would show the fish that I catch with these on the channel. While I don't show that here, you can find that on my other channel, linked here. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
Today, we're going to tie up a unique pattern that was inspired by the Prince Nymph. To start, we'll grab some white thread, attach it to our hook shank, and snap the excess free. We'll then insert some lead-free wire, secure it with our thread, and helicopter the excess free. Continue wrapping to the bend of the hook and grab a peacock sword. We'll strip off a few feathers and secure them to the back of the fly. Secure tightly and wrap your thread towards the bead. Snip the excess free and grab some gold wire. Here I'm using size small. Insert the gold wire into the bead and secure it tightly, wrapping back towards the tail. And grab our peacock sword. But instead, we'll be using this herl that's located on the bottom of your feather. This herl's thinner and makes a great ribbing. We'll secure it to the back of the fly, snip the excess free, and begin wrapping your thread towards the bead, building up a smooth body transition in the process. Once complete, grab your peacock herl and begin palmering it up the body, doing so in open spirals and trying to keep them evenly spaced. Once you reach your thread, secure, and snipping the excess free. We'll then grab our gold wire and begin counter wrapping up the body until we reach our thread. This will help provide durability for our delicate peacock herl. Secure tightly and helicopter the excess free. We'll then grab our peacock sword again, strip off a few fibers, and secure them to the head of the fly. Once complete, we can begin hackling this around the head of our fly. If you have one, you can do this with a rotary vise, but if not, you can simply do it by hand. Secure, and snip the excess free. With this complete, we'll rotate our fly around and grab some cream-colored biots. Position them in a V formation and secure them loosely to the head of the fly. This way, you can manipulate the fibers to face out, splaying away from each other. Once happy, secure tightly and snip the excess free. Next, we'll grab some dubbing. Here I'm using the color Hare's Ear and wrap it over the top of our biots. Once complete, brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. And this is a fly I like to call the Prince's Sword. I've had decent success using this as an attractor pattern and would love to hear how you guys do with it. If you'd like to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you
in the next one. This simple midge can help you catch more fish. To tie it, we'll start off with some black thread, secure it to the hook shank, and snap the excess free. Next, we'll grab some red crystal flash, measure it to be about the length of the hook shank, and secure it to the back of our fly. With the tail secured, we'll begin wrapping up towards the bead, snip the excess free, and grab some wire. Here I'm using small in the color rust. Insert the wire into the bead, secure tightly, and wrap towards the back of the fly. Once we reach the tail, we'll reverse directions, wrapping our thread towards the bead. Once complete, grab your wire and begin wrapping it in open spirals towards the head of the fly. Take your time to ensure that each wrap is evenly spaced. Once you reach your bead, secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire, then helicopter the excess free. Next, we'll grab some dubbing. This is one of my new favorites. You can find it in the links below. Create a dubbing noodle and wrap it just behind the bead. And brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. And this is an Inferno midge. Makes for a great attractor pattern, it sinks quickly, and can be used year-round. If you don't tie and would like to try it, you can pick some up on my website below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
Today we're going to be tying up one of my favorite variations of a dirty hipster. Now for starters, we're going to use some tan thread and secure that to our hook shank. Snip the excess free and wrap back up towards the head of our fly. We'll secure the bead in place using some lead-free wire, helicopter it free, and wrap back towards the bend of our hook. Here we can build up a small thread dam, grab some brown biots. We'll snip off 2 and place the tips splaying outwards in our fingers. Measure that out to be about half or a hook shank in length, whatever you prefer, and transfer that measurement to the back of our fly. Make sure you're happy with the results, and then secure the rest of the biot towards the head of our fly. Once complete, we'll snip the excess free. Grab some copper wire. I'm using a size brassy. Secure that to the hook and wrap back towards our biot tail. Once complete, we will grab some brown hare's ear dubbing, create a dubbing noodle, and begin building up a body of our fly. And once complete, we can grab our brassy wire and start counter wrapping that up the fly until we reach our thread. Once here, we will secure by taping wraps both in front and behind, and helicopter and free. Next up, we will grab a strand of flashaboo. We're going to secure that just behind the head of our fly and wrap back slightly onto our dubbing. Next, we will grab a small piece of thin skin, here I'm using clear, and secure that over our flashaboo. With those in place, we will grab some silicone legs, attach those just behind the head of our fly, and secure them tightly. Next, we will snip to length. I like mine to be a bit longer than the body of the fly. Grab some more brown hare's ear, and we will use this dubbing to help move our legs to face the proper direction. Take your time with this as you wrap up towards the head. Make sure the legs splay out properly. And once you reach the head of the fly, you can brush everything back, secure it in place, fold over the thin skin and flashaboo, and secure tightly. Once complete, we can snip those free, pull back our silicone legs, and whip finish to keep everything in place. Snip your thread free and add some UV resin to the back of this fly. This will both increase the durability of our fly, but also its visibility and the shine that we get from our flashaboo. This is an excellent trout fly. It sinks quickly, has a great profile, and the legs provide a lot of movement in the water. If you don't tie yourself and would like to try some out, you can go visit my website listed down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Today we're going to be creating a natural quill nymph that is perfect for high pressure waters. For starters, we're going to use a firehole stone with a matching Euro hook, and we're going to be using a size 16/aught Vivis black thread.
We'll start by attaching our thread to our hook shank and snapping it free. Next, we'll wrap towards the head of our fly and use some lead-free wire to help secure that bead in place so it's not going to move around the hook. Helicopter free and grab some peacock feathers. We're going to grab a single feather and strip all of our fibers off of it, leaving us with just a quill. Attach that quill to the body of the nymph and wrap that back towards the bend of the hook. Once there, we can begin building a body transition to the head of our fly, and we'll do this by wrapping all the way up towards the head and then almost back down to where we started. Continuing this towards the head makes a perfect transition. Once that's complete, we can grab our quill and start wrapping it in closed spirals to the head of our fly. If given a little space, the black thread underneath can give a nice segmentation to our body as well. Once we reach the head of the fly, we will secure our quill by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping it free. Next, we'll take some UV resin and paint this over our quill. This is going to add durability, but most of all, it's also going to give it a sleek, shiny look that really makes the quill pop. Once you're happy, you can hit that with a UV light, securing it in place. We'll switch over to a tan thread. And for the head of our fly, I chose to mix brown and natural hare's ear together. The natural creates a nice addition to this fly, so it's not all one uniform color. We'll use our new dubbing blend to create a dubbing noodle and start to wrap this just behind the bead of our fly. Once finished, we'll pull everything back, give one securing wrap towards the head of our fly, and start to brush out our dubbing so this fly is going to have a nice buggy look. Once you're happy, you can trim away any excess fibers, and that is one of my favorite natural Euro midges to use. It sinks fast, avoids snags on the bottom, and is excellent at catching trout. If you guys want to try out this fly, you can visit my website and I'd be happy to tie some up for you. If you like the video, hit that like button, and if you want to see more just like it, you can always hit subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Today we're going to be tying a pentagon variation. For starters, we're going to use some Vivas thread in olive. We'll start by securing our thread to the hook shank, snapping the excess free, and inserting a small lead-free wire to help hold our bead in place. Secure tightly and helicopter free. Next, we'll wrap towards the bend of the hook and grab some white feathers. We'll select about 5 to 10 fibers, pull those free and measure them to be the length of the hook shank. Secure them to the back of the fly, further securing by wrapping towards the bead. Pull the excess free and grab some gold wire. This one in particular is a small gold wire that we will wrap to the back of our hook. Once complete, we will use our thread to create a seamless body transition towards the head of our fly. Grab our gold wire and start to wrap this in open spirals till we reach our thread. Once complete, we will secure, taking wraps both in front as well as behind our gold wire, and helicopter free. Next, we can whip finish, securing everything in place. Seat the knot and snip free. I like to make sure to burn off any tag ends for this next step. Grab some UV resin and paint this over our body. This is going to give it a nice shiny and smooth look. Once happy, we can use a UV light to fix it in place. For this next step, we're going to use some eyeshadow. Now, if you don't have any of your own like me, you can always steal some from your wife or your girlfriend. I like to use this midnight black color for this particular pattern. You'll also need to grab some UV resin. We'll mix these together and add a drop of our mixture onto the bead as well as part of the body. Make sure you take your time with this. If you have a rotating vise, it's very helpful to get the proper shape. This fly with the tungsten bead is perfect for pocket water trout. I like to use this one in particular anywhere I find blue wing olives. If you want to try these flies out for yourself, but don't tie, you can always submit a custom order on my website and I'd be happy to tie some up for you. And I will see you in the next one.
We're going to be tying up a very simple yet effective caddis pattern. We're going to grab some black thread. I like to use Vivas in 16-aught. We're going to secure our thread to the hook, wrap that back to the head of the fly, and then we're going to secure the bead in place by adding a lead-free wire. Now if you want, you can take several wraps with your lead-free wire to help secure it as well and add some extra weight. Next up, we're going to grab some Flashabou. Now I'm using a pearl in this case. You're only going to need one strand to create several flies. We're going to secure that to the head of the fly and wrap that well beyond the hook shank. Next up, we're going to be grabbing some hare's ear. Now I like to use this insect green color, but you can use any olive color or a tan, black, whatever you might need in order to match your particular hatch. We'll create a dubbing noodle and then start to build up our body. You're going to want to taper this as much as you can on the way up. As strands fall out, don't worry about it too much. I like the added bugginess personally. And if you don't want it to be buggy, some people like these patterns to be quite sleek, you can use a different synthetic form of dubbing. So we'll wrap that up to the head, and if you don't quite make it, that's fine. We can always add some extra dubbing. It's always easier to add more dubbing than to take some off. Now, once we get to the head of the fly, we'll secure everything, reach back and grab our Flashabou and start to wrap this up in open spirals, creating a segmentation to our body. We'll do that to the head of the fly. Secure everything in place, snip that off. After that, we'll grab some black hare's ear, create a looser dubbing noodle, and you can tighten it as needed, and finish off the head of our fly. Pull everything back and get a good thread wrap in front of all these strands to secure everything in place. You can leave it as is, or you can fish these how I love to, and that would be to grab a brush and thoroughly brush these out to give it a nice buggy look. I find that buggy flies just catch more fish, and if you even want to top this off some more, adding a CDC hackle around it is also another great addition. Once we finish with that, pull out any fibers that you don't like, grab a whip finisher or use your fingers and secure everything in place. And that is my version of the waltz worm. This is an excellent fly to fish. It makes for a good searching pattern. Definitely recommend giving it a try, and if you don't tie yourself but want to try this fly, you can visit my website down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you want to see more like it, make sure you go down below, hit the subscribe and bell notification, and I will see you in the next video. We are going to be tying the Myers jig leech. Now for starters, I've selected a Vivus 12-aught in white, and we'll be using a firehole stone, Euro jig hook, and matching gold bead. We'll start our securing thread wraps right behind the bead head and snap the excess free. Next, we'll wrap back up towards the bead of our fly. Now you can see that our bead is quite loose, and I've got a lot of questions about why I use this lead-free wire. Well, this helps secure our bead in place, so we're going to adhere that to the hook shank, wrap it down tightly, and helicopter free. And now you can see that our bead is set firmly in place. We'll then grab some pink crystal flash, snip off about 3 strands, secure that to our hook shank, and wrap back well into the bend of our hook. Once complete, we'll return our thread to the bead of the fly, grab our flash, and start wrapping these in tight spirals up towards the head of our fly. You want to make sure that none of the hook shank is showing. Once we reach the head of our fly, we will secure by taking thread wraps in front as well as behind our flash and snipping free. Grab some UV resin and we'll paint this over the flash to give it a more shiny look and also increase its durability. Once happy, we can set that in place using our UV light and grab a pink zonker strip. We're going to tie the head in so that the fibers face towards the back of the hook, taking thread wraps back into the zonker strip itself to give us room for the next step. We will then cut the zonker strip to length. I like to have mine be about twice as long as our hook shank. Now we will grab some ostrich herl, strip off some of the fibers on the tips, and use that to attach it to the head of our fly. Snip the excess free, and then we'll start hackling the ostrich herl towards the head of our fly. Once complete, we will secure it in place by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and then you should be able to just pull the excess free. And this is one of my favorite variations for trout. They love the pink color, and the action that it provides is great for enticing finicky fish. If you liked today's video, hit that like button and make sure you hit subscribe to see more just like it. If you guys need to stock up your fly box, I have a whole fly shop that you can do so. I have some flies that are ready to ship out. And if you want some more custom work, you can go to the custom order forums and submit a form there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.